I want to get to the reasons why we reject these regulations and believe the Secretary should as well. Number one, while we don't support a two-tiered system of voting, that is where you could vote in federal elections but not in state, the Secretary does. And the information these 32,000 registrants provided would easily allow them to vote in federal elections under the Secretary's rules. The Secretary is involved in a lawsuit over this very thing. So there is absolutely no reason to purge the files. These registrants should, at a minimum, be allowed to vote in federal elections, and if the lawsuit goes the right way, in state elections as well. The regulations likely, number two, violate the NVRA. It didn't escape our notice that the Secretary at first called these registrations in suspense, and then later changed it to a term incomplete. When received, when their registrations were received, these folks were put on the voter rolls, put into Elvis, and then called in suspense in the beginning. Since they were on the rolls, they could only be removed for one of very few reasons according to federal law. Perhaps they died, if they asked to be removed, or they failed the 4-year test, not because the Secretary wanted to cover them up. Now he says they're incomplete, so he can pretend they never got in the rolls and can be removed at his discretion. We don't think so. And we don't want the state to be involved in another lengthy, costly lawsuit for violating federal law. Number three, there's no reason to say that 90 days is enough. And in the hearing last month, the Secretary presented no reason to explain why 90 days was enough. If you're born out of state, it can take much longer to get a birth certificate. County election officials told me some voters think, well, there's no reason to rush. I'll just wait till next year when we're actually going to have an election. Number four, the Secretary has said no big deal, they just have to register again and start over. But he knows like we do that most registrations are done at the DMV and they won't be back anytime soon, as our licenses are good for 6 years. Number five, when the Secretary requested the SAFE Act, he noted that even a few fraudulent votes could sway an election. There have been so few fraudulent votes, one is more likely to be struck by lightning than be impacted by a fraudulent vote. However, the impact of more than 32,000 missing votes and the impact of throwing out over 1,000 votes for no photo ID cannot be overstated. We have created the most unfair and unsafe elections in the nation in order to fix a problem that does not exist. Number six, we already have on file all the birth certificates for every Kansan, or nearly every Kansan. There is absolutely no reason to purge the registrations of those born in Kansas when we already have those documents on file and have not done enough to match them up.
Thank you. My name is Andrew Howell, Shawnee County Election Office, Shawnee County's Election Commissioner. Just a couple of things. I wanted to say that I do appreciate the effort from the Secretary of State's office to make it easier for people if they've already given us a document that has their citizenship in another county. One of these proposed regs, I believe it's 723-14, or is it 15? Allows, if they've already submitted their document to another county, that we can actually accept that. So that makes it easier for voters. I want to say that I appreciate that effort. Secondly, one of the things, having administered elections now for several years, that I think we need to keep in mind is there are significant costs with a number of these things. I, every year, have to submit a budget to the county commissioners. We have to explain it, and it takes a great deal of time to administer some of these things. So I think, again, not a complete argument, but something to consider is there is significant cost anytime you have an ongoing process. Jeanette in our office will tell you that she spends many days going over things time and time again, trying to determine do these people want to be contacted, how many times have we contacted them. So I think it's important to remember from an efficiency standpoint and a budgetary standpoint, certainly not all of the picture, but it is a consideration in our office. We spend a great deal of time sending out letters to voters, making sure they understand the various explicit and specific details of when registration closes, what their current status is. So as a practical matter, I do support the 90 days. I do think it is a workable solution and that it can make a difference in administering elections effectively.